Your attention to the, I believe it's the next to the last page of the report itself,
Right.
the written portion of the report. Okay, right above the signatures. And highlighted portion just to make it easy for everybody to find during the hearing. And could you read that out loud, please, starting with that the Board of Commissioners?
That the Board of Commissioners, after the expiration of 30 days from the filing of this report, will consider and act upon an ordinance providing for the taking over and adoption of the said Panmure Avenue as a public road in accordance with law.
Okay. So does this paragraph state that Panmure Road will become a public road in the future when an ordinance is adopted?
That's correct. It clearly states that what had happened to that point, a resolution, a petition, was not enough to complete the legal process.
Okay.
And the other thing, if I may, to the act of 1901, June 7th, clearly shows that an ordinance was required as well for the adoption of such a road.
Okay, so based on this report, did you then look for an ordinance adopted by the Board of Commissioners to adopt Panmure as a public road?
Yes. We reviewed every ordinance.
In your experience, does Haverford Township keep good records of ordinances?
Haverford Township keeps phenomenal records of its ordinances, actually. This wouldn't have been possible without that.
And are they maintained in numerical order?
They are maintained from ordinance number 1 up through the present.
And based on your review of the ordinance numbers, do you believe that you reviewed a complete record of the ordinances?
Yes, I do.
Have you made requests to Haverford Township for documentation that would evidence the passage of an ordinance to adopt this portion of Panmure Road as a public road?
Yes, we do.
And was the township ever able to provide you with such an ordinance?
There was never an ordinance provided. The only thing that was provided was the original resolution that is referenced in this report from June 5th, 1916.
Did you review the Delaware County Archives for records relating to other requirements for opening as a public road, such as
Yes.
appointment of viewers?
Yes.
And did you find anything?
There is no record of any sort regarding Panmure Road in the Delaware County Archives other than this document.
Now, I've got a document which I've marked as A4. And this is being presented as the law in effect in 1916, which indicates the requirements for the opening of a public road. Just to make that, I'm not expecting the commissioners to read this. It's just there for support for what the requirements were at that time. Is it your understanding, based on your research, that this Act 247 was in effect and applicable to Haverford Township in 1916?
Thank you.
When the report was filed with the Court of Quarter Sessions?
Yes, exactly, and in fact, that is stated within the document from the archive.
Now, looking at another approach to public ownership of the road, did you research whether the owners of the properties along this portion of Panmure Road had ever deeded land to Haverford Township for a public roadway?
Yes, and there are no deeds of dedication. All the deeds run to the midline of Panmure.
So there was nothing that you were able to find that would show a deed that would go from the owners to Haverford Township?
There, as I said, the deeds all go to the midline, and there were no deeds of dedication.
I'm going to show you a letter dated June 19th, 2014, to Mr. John Rogowski. It's marked as Exhibit A5. Can you identify that, please?
Yes, this is my co-counsel, Mr. Rogowski. This is a letter that we had sent back in June to...
Well, let me just correct. This is not a letter that you sent.
No, I
This
was
is in
going to say,
response
it's
to a
in
letter.
response to a letter that Mr. Rogowski sent for a right-to-know request, requesting any information regarding ownership or deeds of dedication regarding the 700 block of Panmure.
Okay, would you please read the second and third paragraphs of this letter aloud?
Yeah. On June 18th, you requested information of deeds of dedication or other relevant documents for the 700 and 500 block of Panmure Road in Haverford Township. The township has denied your request because no such records exist.
Thank you. So, based on the research that you have done, could Panmure Road today actually be a private road because the requirements for adoption of the road as a public road did not occur and there was no deed of dedication that was recorded?
That is correct. There were two ways legislatively for the road to become public. The one was through deeds of dedication, which were not obtained, and the other one was through the Act of 1901, for which there was no ordinance that was ever passed.
When you purchased your property, did you think that your street was a public road?
You know, I don't think I really gave a whole lot of thought to that when I was when we were purchasing it. It was a very complicated transaction.
Did you think it was a private road?
No, not necessarily. No.
When and how did you first become aware that it might not be a public road?
Well, it was when the research was completed. You know,
And when was that?
that was completed from, I guess it started out, it really ran from June to, you know, to September of this year. And then the other thing to add in from the First Class Township Code, that it could never be, a public road could never be less than 24 feet in width. And the use by anyone of the road has only ever been to the 18 feet width. The other thing I just want to specify real quickly, in terms of the deeds, the original deeds, the original deed for 730 Panmure Road makes no specification of the width of the road.
Was the possible private status of the road apparent to anybody?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Had Haverford Township exercised control over the road in any way?
There are no records of any paving, but they have plowed it.
During your review of the Haverford Township ordinances, did you find any ordinance that seemed to indicate that the township considered Panmure Road to be a public road?
So, following the mention in the minutes of 1916, there is no mention in ordinance of Panmure until 1964. So,
And I'm going to show you
yeah.
a document which is entitled Ordinance 1245. And I'd ask you to, is this the ordinance that you found?
yes.
Just hold off 1 second until people get it.
I'm not real sure, sir. I'll be happy to take this, but how about if we go, let them finish their presentation first, all right? And then we'll talk about it, okay? You want to hang on till then?
I wanted you to know, and I'm not getting involved.
Okay. 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 All right. Well, let me just. This is probably a good point for everybody to. We have to run this. This is a hearing, actually, so we have to run it like a hearing. So the lawyer has the opportunity to question her witness. Then everyone will be able to question the witness as well, and then there will be an opportunity at the end of the hearing for anybody that wants to add comments one way or the other, and to present any other evidence that might be, necessary for us to make a determination. But right now, it would be premature for me to take this. So if you don't mind just holding this back, and then I promise you we'll take it from you later on in the night, okay? Thank you, sir. Okay, thanks. And I don't know if I cut you off, and I apologize if I did.
Just waiting for the
I
ordinance.
apologize.
That's okay. It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
For all the
It's,
commissioners to get a copy of the ordinance before that we had formed. I don't know if it's,
Oh, I know, they didn't. They got stuck right here on my desk, or my,
Come on,
lap.
Jim. Slowing up the
Okay.
process here.
Okay, now we can go forward.
If we just knock it over and try not to cover it up.
can you describe what this ordinance does?
So This is, what it does is it bans parking on Panmure Road.
And does the area covered by this ordinance include the portion of Panmure Road that's the subject of this hearing?
It does.
And is that why the application that was filed to the township requests relief which recognizes the question of whether this portion of Panmure Road is presently public or already privately owned? In other words, does this raise the question that possibly the township has considered it to be public, so we wanted to address that as well?
Exactly, correct. That by 1964, the township did consider this to be a public road.
Okay, now that you've determined that you believe that Panmure Road may be a private road, why don't the abutting residents just exercise authority over the road without coming before the township on this hearing?
Well, we believe that it's important to respect due process.
Could you explain why the residents of the vacation portion of Panmure Road want the road to either be vacated or declared as a private road?
We want the ability to put traffic calming measures onto the road. The road portion is too short for township-sponsored traffic calming measures. It would not meet the criteria for the ordinance. Plus, we don't believe that township dollars should really be spent on a road which is not in fact a public road. And we're willing to do that ourselves at our own expense. So for the sake of safety, I have two of my kids there. One of them is a little guy. And we want him to be able to ride his bike on the street. If he rode his bike on that street, he would probably be launched 60 to 70 feet in the air from a collision.
And are there other families with children along your road?
There are, let me see, let me count them. There are three, there are more than 10. I believe there are approximately 13 children. Yeah, sorry.
Do you have any, have you and your neighbors talked about any steps to be taken, the traffic calming? What's going to be the form of that?
We'd like to put some, we'd like to put some speed bumps, speed humps, on the road. And, that's really what we're talking about here. I think there's some concern that, we want no one to drive on it. Actually, our concern is speed. We're not concerned with traffic. We're concerned with speed and the fact of people coming around that curve. That's our concern.
And finally, if Panmure Road is confirmed as a private road or is vacated, what will be the impact on other Haverford Township residents?
Well, we believe, and others may tell you differently, but we believe, looking at the map, that there will actually be no negative impact on other other Haverford Township residents. As a matter of fact, four of the people, three of the signers of the petition, who are on the northern side, abut Old Buck. We are working assiduously with Lower Merion to have traffic calming installed there, but we can't wait. Having spent 2 years on this project, we can't wait until someone is killed or injured, because we believe, as it stands, given the narrowness of the width and given the statute of the First-Class Township Code, we believe that this road cannot exist as it is, as a public road, and to have the appearance of such to people in the area risks, we think, significant liability for everybody involved. The statute is clear. A public road in a first-class township cannot be less than 24 feet in width.
Okay, I don't have any more questions for Dr. Williams. Does the board have any questions for him?
Do you want to go first? I'll let you go first.
Sure. This is actually for you. I'm sorry, ma'am. Sarah?
Caroline.
Caroline, I apologize. I'm just trying to follow this deed, and I'm on the last signature page by the Board of Commissioners, and I've just been reading through it quickly, so,
Which exhibit are you looking at?
On the bottom.
Exhibit A3. Exhibit A3.
Yes, the report.
So the last page, signed by the Board of Commissioners president, cannot make out his name, Floyd, it looks like. Horatio Floyd. You have highlighted the second last paragraph there, the Board of Commissioners. The previous two paragraphs, that all of the said properties are town lots upon which are erected or proposed to be erected residential properties. After such hearing and consideration, where I guess they're proposing to have this adopted as a public highway,
Right.
and they've notified all these neighbors, is what I'm getting from this document. It says, after such hearing and consideration, the said board unanimously decided in favor of the granting of the prayer of the said petition.
Right. And what they're granting is they're granting the first step in the process,
Okay,
which is approving it to move forward to
With-
filing the report, which gives rise to the opportunity for people to file exceptions to that.
okay,
And
that
when
was my
there's a
question.
30-day period, then they have the opportunity to pass the ordinance,
Okay,
which is the final step required to make the road public.
Can I just want to explain a little bit about what was going on since I reviewed the entire minutes from that year. When a road was taken over, when a private road was taken over at that time, and possibly even today, for the first assumption, it had to be sort of paved according to the township specifications. And essentially what happened is not enough money was raised. And if you look over the minutes, the same amount of money appears over 2 months, and then it just disappears. Because what had happened there is, this is also documented within the township minutes, the cost to pave had gone up by 100%. And at that point,
Okay.
it was too expensive to complete.
and, I'm sure that the names were just changed, but they're referring to a road that's not on this map. Wild Ross, or in one of the documents?
Wild Goss was.
Wild Goss? Pardon me?
It used to be Old Buck.
Spell that for me, what is it?
Wild Goss, WILDGOSS, I believe.
Yes, that was the part of that was Old Buck. That was both the part that Lower Marion appears to have vacated sometime in the 60s or 70s that went from Railroad to Buck.
Okay,
And then the existing part of Old Buck that goes from Buck to Lancaster Avenue. That
okay, so from Pannier to Lancaster,
that
okay.
in its entirety was Wild Goss.
Okay, thank you. And you don't have any, it's merely about putting safety measures on that portion of the road, not closing the road?
We have come to the conclusion that we can achieve our ends quite effectively by installing safety measures.
And I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to read the law that you sent over, documentation from the statute, but you're saying 24 feet wide is the minimum for, and this is 18?
It's approximately 18, yeah.
I do travel this road every day, so I do know. I've never gotten out and measured it,
Over
but
25 miles per hour.
I've had a lot of near misses at that corner.
Yes.
So I'm very familiar with it. I think that is it. Thank you. I'll look over and see if there's
If
anything
I may
else.
just say one other thing. The complexity of closing it off would require a grading permit and.
Right.
Yeah, it's something that you could control and deny.
Well, I'm just curious as to what the thought process is.
We want to be safe.
Oh, I know that, but I mean, long-term, I'm thinking, what is the plan that you have discussed and thought about? And
Yeah, I mean, we wanna do some speed humps. That's, as we've said to our neighbors, you want to drive down it, that's fine. We'll write you. We're not against that. That's not what we're against.
okay, thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say I support something being done up here, but I'm not sure that this is necessarily what I support. Obviously, my first choice would be the one-way coupling. would be my first choice. And I think you're aware that now Lower Merion is kind of getting on board with that idea, which they weren't for a long time. And they did ask that I state that they are, trying to work toward that. They couldn't be here tonight, so they wanted me to say that they are working toward that. Scott Zeloff, Commissioner Scott Zeloff's now involved with it, and is trying to get Commissioner Linder on board as well. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I don't know, Laurie, could we, like, if it's a portion of Panmure, can we do that? I mean, it doesn't either have to be all or nothing, including, it would have to include the Mainline Arts Center as well, and the other portion, if it's stated as Panmure. I'd want to know how that was in the original, back in whatever year, 1916 or whatever. I'd want to know if it was the whole road or just a portion of the road. I mean, I doubt they,
I don't know that we have the information about whether or not it included the 700 block or the 500 block.
that's my whole concern. I mean, I don't know how you can just break off part because they don't agree with you, which
Can we
is
do what? I don't know
partially what it
what
is.
your question was. What was your question?
Well, it's either, to me, it would either have to be the whole road or it would have to be the 500 block and the 700 block. I don't see how, if it's always been included as Panmure Road, all of a sudden we're breaking a portion of it off. I mean, I wonder about that, number one.
I think that the statute says all or a part of can be vacated. I think is what I think the statute that controls here under the first-class township code with respect to vacating a roadway talks about all or part of a highway. So,
Okay.
well, whether that makes sense under the circumstances, that's what we're here to decide, but I think
Right.
that you could do it.
And there are specific cases that deal with vacation of portions of roads. It's
Okay.
not really that uncommon.
Yeah, so that's part of it. Second part, Laurie, what would be the implication of township services such as trash, plowing, leaves, any services? Paving, even,
Well, it's not going to be paved, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah, if the township makes a determination that the road is private, the township will not maintain, it won't plow it, it won't clear the leaves from the roadway, it won't collect the trash on the roadway without specific rights. But I have other concerns, which I've expressed to Dr. Williams. I have concerns about prescriptive easement rights for public using the roadway for almost 100 years. I have
Open and notoriously it would be considered?
I have concerns about, I did speak with the township engineer, and I know that the sanitary sewer here is part of the Preston drainage that the township took over when Tom Banner was the township manager. So there is a sanitary sewer there. I mean, I don't know that this is fully fleshed out, fully explored.
Township sewer fully flushed.
Fleshed out, yeah, get it, yeah, there we go.
And I think
That's very good, Laurie.
and I think that that there's a concern also if the lower block of Panmure Road is a similar width and has the similar issue, are we going to be back with the lower, I don't want to call it the lower block, the 500 block of Panmure Road back in that same
And
situation?
part of one of the problems with that would be if, I believe Haverford College owns most of the properties on the other side of that street at this time, and they own the school on the other side.
Haverford School owns it.
Or Haverford School, excuse me, Haverford, that's what I meant, excuse me. So where these people, like Dr. Williams, are saying they wouldn't close the road down, the neighbors could go on it, technically Haverford School could close it down if they want it, because they have both sides of the street.
I don't know that they could close the road. I mean, the road
Right.
hasn't been, I'm not aware, and maybe Dr. Williams can testify to this, but I don't know that he's been a resident on Panmure Road long enough to offer any testimony about it, but I'm not aware that the road has been closed to public travel at any time that wouldn't have afforded some sort of public rights of usage. But again, I don't know
Well,
that.
the issue with the easement doesn't really relate to a public status. That
Understood.
relates to a private status. So that would really
Understood.
be an issue that the property owners would have to deal with if it occurred. That really has nothing to do with whether or not the road is public or should be vacated. But the other aspect, the precedential question, this portion of Panmure Road is unique because if you look at the plan, it has a very sharp curve. And that is what causes a lot of the issue here, that curve reduces the visibility. You don't have that same situation on other portions of the road. So it's like any application involving real property. You have to look at the unique characteristics of that particular property. And the fact that you do something in one location doesn't mean somebody else who has a totally different situation is entitled to that same consideration or approval.
Okay. Could I ask Dave Panoni a question on that? Dave, could you come up?
I guess we should have Mr. Panoni
Panoni
sworn
sworn
in.
in?
too, yeah.
I definitely would swear him in. Yeah.
I do.
And say your full name, please.
David Panoni.
And that's spelled.
P as in Peter, E-N-N-O-N-I.
Would there be a way that we could, like, square that off rather than it be rounded the way it is? Yeah.
I haven't looked
The
at it.
way you're doing in Coopertown, kind of, where you're, right now, we have those temporary posts up to make people realize the traffic pattern's gonna change there. And, then actually change it with curbing and square it off. So it might take away some of the speed.
I'd have to look at it. I mean, it's a logical question. It's traffic calming, which we've implemented in a dozen places within the township. But the devil's in the details, Jeff. I'd have to
Right.
look at it to see
Okay.
whether that could be physically done in this location.
Okay, all right, and then I'd like to ask Sergeant Scott to get up as well, to talk about the traffic studies that we have had done on this situation.
We're gonna have to-
I do.
And your full name and spell your last?
Sergeant Craig Scott, SCOTT.
Yeah, could you describe the traffic studies and what you came up with as far as the speeds and the trips and everything? So the reasons why we can't put the speed humps in as a township?
We have one traffic study on record from 2006. It shows the average daily traffic to be 574 cars a day. The 85th percentile of speed, which we go by for traffic calming speed humps, is 26 miles an hour. The legally posted speed limit's 25 miles an hour. For traffic calming devices, the average daily traffic volume must be 1,000 cars or greater, or at the peak hour, 100 cars. At the peak hour on Panmure, you do not have more than 100 cars in the peak hour.
Now, what would be the first, 25 miles per hour, what would be the first speed that you could write a ticket at?
35 miles an hour.
35? How about if it were 15 miles an hour?
15 miles an hour, in the state of Pennsylvania, even on a township roadway and non-state highway, in order to post a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, you need to do traffic study as we have here, but you also need to do a slope and grade study and submit to PennDOT a request for a reduced speed limit of 15 miles an hour.
And what would be the first ticket you could write on
At 15?
at 15?
25 miles an hour.
25, okay. All right.
May I ask?
Yeah, let me just hold on for 1 second if we could, because it's getting a little bit, it's
That's okay.
different,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine, but
Okay,
can I just ask him a couple
you
of
can, yeah,
questions?
just give me 1 second, because let me see if
Yeah.
Commissioner Heilman is done first, okay? Are you finished with
Yeah, I think
questioning?
that's it
Okay.
for Sergeant
And
Scott
Any
for
other
right now.
commissioners have any questions on Officer, I'm sorry, I forgot your name?
Craig Scott.
Great, Scott, Officer Scott?
Can you repeat how much traffic goes through that street a day?
The average daily traffic is 574, I'm sorry,
574
a day.
a day.
Vehicles? And how many,
74 vehicles a day, that's both directions.
And I do have one more question, actually. If speed humps were put on, if it were a private road, if speed humps were put on, would it have an effect on Old Buck?
Would it have an effect on Old Buck? Yes.
Yeah.
Comparative in Haverford Township, Upland Road, with Sycamore and Shelbourne, we did
And
traffic
Highland.
studies since those speed humps were installed. Shelbourne Road's traffic increased slightly, Sycamore Road and Woodbine's traffic increased almost double.
And at Highland, people cut through the church lane and people cut through the school parking lot to avoid the speed hump. So I think they'd go on Buck Lane or Old Buck to avoid speed humps as well. Be pretty safe to say.
That where they're
Okay.
getting to anyway?
What's that?
Isn't that where they're cutting through to get to, is Old Buck Lane?
No,
'Cause it's
no, they're going through to get to Buck.
in one direction.
Buck and Old Buck, yeah. But
Buck is really
the
college on the
coupling,
lower
the
side.
coupling that Lower Merion didn't grant, like, it's something I wanted to do. I think the police would have been for it. I think the township would have been for it. But Lower Merion unfortunately didn't act upon it. That was the major problem. I think the coupling would make a lot more sense, having Old Buck go one way and have Pamure go the other way. But unfortunately, we can only do it if Lower Merion is on board.
I do have a question.
Okay, are you finished,
yeah.
Commissioner Hammond? I'm sorry.
Quick questions. Sergeant Scott, that 574 for peak hours, was that traffic due to school traffic, drop-off, pickup? Was that
The peak hours are consistently...
any way of knowing it with that?
Yeah, the peak hours are consistently between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning, and in the afternoon, it looks like they're around 4 or 5 o'clock.
Does it look as if the school is really most of the traffic that's coming through there?
There's no way to
Or
possibly...
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, you can't tell it.
We just get the peak hours off of that. Based on school times, from my experience, I would say the morning would be school times, the afternoon would not be school.
Just one more question. On Upland, what would you, I mean, we did several traffic studies over on Upland. What was the daily cars traveling through there?
On Upland?
Yeah.
Upland came in just below 1,000 cars a day, but the peak hour was over 100.
Right.
So it met the criteria based on the peak hours.
Okay.
I have another question. Sergeant, do you know how many accidents occurred there? And what I mean by accidents, any vehicles that have gone off of the main road into someone's property or?
I have all the crash reports dating back to 2007, which is consistent with our electronic incident report. Right in
And the
system.
reason why I asked is because I'm looking at it on the internet and I could see where it starts to turn.
Yes.
That bend there that goes into Old Buck. And if they're do they speed, Jeff, do they speed from Buck Lane to Old Buck Lane too? Do you know? Is there speeding both directions?
Yeah, well, in that area, I would have to do the traffic study for me to say it. In my opinion, do they speed? They speed through the whole.
Whole thing, both
Yeah,
ways?
yeah.
It's not worse in any one direction, right?
I do have the crash
Okay, I'm
reports.
sorry. Sorry.
They're listed by intersection or by landmark. Only 2 of them would be mid-block crashes. So they would possibly be, without actually reading the summary of the reports. I can't say definitely if they are at the curb, but
You can't say how many or?
2.
Oh, 2, just 2.
2
On the straightaway.
Since 2007.
Probably.
2007. Okay.
And is that on the straightaway, or is that on the curb?
Yeah.
They're mid-block, so unless I actually read every single report,
Okay.
I can't get that to you right
Thanks.
this second.
So there's been 12 crashes there since 2007?
Yes, but
2 mid-block?
that includes Buck Lane, intersections, so
Can we get a copy of that?
I right here.
Okay, but let's keep in mind, this is a hearing, okay, so we can get a copy, but we need to we need to mark that as an exhibit, okay? And we would also want to show Ms. Edwards that document as well before, see if she has any objection to it, or if you could show her that, and then we'll mark it as exhibit, whatever exhibits they.
Thank you, Counselor. I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry about that.
I didn't mean to, take off evidence here.
Mr. Williams has already been given that.
I was lamenting, I understand.
Okay,
I
let's.
apologize.
Okay, let's, if we could, mark them as Scott 1, are there 2 documents or 1? 2 sets
One
of?
document, the first is the crash reports, and the second is the traffic study.
Okay, so let's mark the crash report Scott 1, if we could. I can do that for you if you would like. And then we'll mark and what was the second?
Traffic study.
Okay, and we'll mark the traffic study Scott 2.
She has not seen the
Okay,
traffic.
I will give them both to her. I'll get you copies of them as well
Thank you.
tomorrow, okay?
May I ask him?
You certainly can. Mhm.
So the traffic study that you were referring to was performed in 2006,
That's correct.
so 8 years ago?
Correct.
You might need to move up a little, okay?
Shall I repeat that?
Yes, please.
So the traffic study that you referred to was performed in 2006?
That's correct.
That was 8 years ago. Has there been any study done since then?
No, at Mr. Williams' request, and after speaking with Commissioner Heilman, I was going to conduct one. I believe it was the end of May. Mr. Williams said it was pointless at that time since school had let out, so that was not conducted.
So are you familiar with the roads in this vicinity?
Yes.
Would you say that the traffic has increased since then?
No, I would not.
Not
Without
since
conducting a
2011?
study, I can't say.
Okay, so you don't know whether it's increased?
Like I said, without conducting a study, I wouldn't be
Okay.
able to say.
All right, so you don't know what the conditions are there, like there
I
today?
travel Pamir regularly.
But you don't know what the conditions, the traffic conditions are like today?
I don't have a study now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any
Yeah, I
questions?
would say, do you know what year the Haverford School changed the entrance onto the, I guess it's considered College Station Road there, or College Ave? You don't know what year it was? Yeah, because I think that would have taken traffic off. I think that was probably within that 8-year period, but, was it before then? Okay.
One more time, and I don't,
Yeah.
I know that's very hard, but this is a hearing, and it's very
Okay.
difficult for the court reporter if people call out, okay?
Could we, now that school's back in, could you perform a traffic study?
Yes, traffic
Okay.
study can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Officer Scott?
I know.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Officer Scott. There was also some testimony by Mr. Pannoni. I didn't offer you an opportunity because Officer Scott came right up. Do you have any questions you wanted to ask Mr. Pannoni at this time? No? Okay. Okay, and then it kind of was, I don't know if you completed with, I don't know if you completed Dr. Williams yet either, did you?
We did, yes, complete Dr. Williams.
Okay.
So I don't know if the board.
Okay, so does the board have any questions of
has some
Dr. Williams?
questions, and
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any more.
Board have any other questions of Dr. Williams? Yes, thanks.
I would like to address the concept of easements. I think we will show, either now or later, that there are no easements for multiple reasons. And an ordinance was not passed, so.
Okay, that generate any other questions?
Well, there's,
I have a question, but I think it's better that we discuss that.
The question of me?
Yes.
Okay, questions of me, if it has to do with a legal question, and I think probably the best, excuse me, since you're going to ultimately be the ones that make the decision. If you have questions of me, you're kind of sitting again as a quasi-judicial body. We can have an executive session where you can ask me questions. But questions of the witnesses should be done out here.
okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Will he return, if need be?
With Dr. Williams or Officer Scott?
Anyone
Any-
who's testifying now, will they be able to return at any time?
I'm sure, did you hear the question, Ms.
Yeah, if
Edwards?
the hearing's not closed,
Right.
certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would request actually to keep the hearing open, just from the standpoint, I'd like to find out what's going on with the Lower Merion portion.
Okay.
If Lower Merion's going to go along with the coupling, and the board decides to go along with the coupling instead,
Well, how about if we do this, if I could make a suggestion, is how about if we get through the rest of the witnesses we
Right,
have here tonight?
exactly,
And then when we
right.
get finished, we'll do all the housekeeping as to whether we close the record, leave it open, what documents are coming in tonight, which are being held off till later,
Well,
okay?
I'd kind of like to still keep it open from the standpoint, Lower Merion people couldn't make it tonight, the township people, and I'd like to keep it open.
All I'm saying, just
for
to
that
keep it in
standpoint,
order,
right.
With all due respect, Lower Merion, this road is located wholly within Haverford Township. We're here on a vacation application or a determination of whether it's a private road. Lower Merion really doesn't have a say.
This is, okay,
Yeah.
let's just hold off now.
Okay.
Because this is why I wanted to wait until the end, to see where we get to before we get into wasting all the time that we have
Okay.
here while people are here tonight, arguing as to whether we're going to continue to
Slam
another
dunk.
night. So let's see if we can finish up the witnesses that we have here
can meet
tonight,
real
and then
happy
we'll
right
talk
now.
about another night, okay?
And if I might just so I don't
go in the
forget
back
to
for
do
a
it,
second.
I don't have any
Please.
other documents. documents to enter into evidence, so I'd like to move for the admission of those documents now.
Okay, yeah, there's no objection, there's nobody here to object, so they'll be admitted.
Thank you. Okay, my next witness is Mr. John Devine.
I know.
Should I wait to?
I'm not sure what, do we want us to wait for Commissioner Heilman? It's up, yeah, if we probably should,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
why don't
go
we
ahead.
take a-
Just, let's hold on 1 minute.
Yeah,
It's,
no problem.
we,
So why don't we take a recess for a minute? How about we take a
wanna take
5-minute break?
5-minute recess?
Okay?
Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're now finished Dr. Williams' testimony, and we're on the next witness you might have for this case, right?
Sorry, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And say it for me, record, please,
My name is Dr. John Devine.
and spell.
John, John, Devine.
And what is your profession, please?
I'm an internal medicine physician.
And where do you live?
I live at 727 Panmure Road.
And are you the owner of the property?
I am with my wife, Dr. Alexandra Taylor.
And do you have any children?
We have 3 small children, yes.
How long have you lived at this property?
We bought the property in May of this year.
And is your home located on the portion of Panmure Road that's the subject of tonight's application?
It is.
Do you have anything to add to Dr. Williams' description of this portion of Panmure Road?
If I may, we have grave concern about the safety of our children and the safety of ourselves. We have a dog as well. When we walk on the street, traffic moves, we believe, at an average of 35 to 40 miles per hour currently. And also had less than receptive responses when I might just put a hand up and ask somebody to slow down. They really don't want to. I think a significant part of the problem is that there is no parking on Panmure, and it really facilitates the travel of cars going very quickly. And I actually believe that if you were to straighten Panmure, that would in fact be worse. I think the curb is the only thing that keeps people from going even faster along there.
Now, you heard the officer testify about a 25 mile per hour speed limit. First of all, is that adhered to, if it is 25 miles per hour?
I've never seen anybody going 25 or less.
Well,
Jim.
you don't know that. I mean,
Yes.
are you,
Do we have a traffic control device over there?
Well, hang on 1 second, okay? Again, it's very hard for the court reporter if people are talking, okay? So your question was, do we have a traffic control device? I don't know, but the witness is on direct examination now, okay? And when she finishes direct examination, we
Okay.
can certainly ask that question, okay? But we don't want to jump in because it's just going to make the record so discombobulated, okay? So
All right,
let's
sir. Thank
hold our questions till they get finished.
I should also state that the posted speed limit is 15. So that even with the old traffic study, which I think is significant because that happened before the Lexus dealer and it happened before the expansion of the Lexus dealer. The posted speed limit is 15, and we did find an ordinance from the township making the speed limit on Panmure Road 15 miles per hour. So even the traffic report from 2006 indicates that people are going an average of nearly 50% higher than the speed limit. And we feel that 25 is way too fast. We've had a couple of incidents already. One where there was a dog walker coming along heading east on Panmure. My son in the driveway with our dog, who saw the dog across the street, went, trying to get into the street to see the other dog, pulling my son along with him, and big black Cadillac SUV screeching to a halt inches away, only because the dog walker started shouting at the person who was, it felt like 40 miles an hour coming up that road heading toward the main line. So we have very grave concerns. I should also note that there are no streetlights. Are there? I don't know. It feels dark at night, but it just feels unsafe. We were quite surprised. We thought we bought a house on a very narrow road. We've made a substantial investment there on a narrow lane, and with a posted speed limit of 15, and quite frankly, we are distressed at the speed that people travel along that road. And even talking with one of our neighbors here tonight, who said that, sitting on the porch of an adjacent house, for years ago, they used to sit on the porch and marvel at the speed of the people that move along there.
Do the police monitor that road for speed?
I've never seen anybody parked